Hey guitar fanatics, this is going to be a different kind of pentatonic scale video. Probably 99% of players get started on their lead guitar journey by learning pentatonic scales. And pentatonics have made up a large part of the vocabulary of some of the most famous players in history. However, I'm willing to bet that you've heard legends like Eric Johnson, David Gilmour, and Stevie Ray Vaughan play licks that you know are pentatonic based, but then they throw in something different and it makes you think, what was that? Is that some crazy new scale I have to learn now? The answer is probably not. But if you're only playing the 5 pentatonic notes, you're leaving so much on the table. Pros play licks where they add in or move around 1 or 2 extra notes, and suddenly their licks sound more melodic, more interesting, sometimes even exotic and modal. In this lesson, I'll teach you how to take your basic pentatonics, both major and minor, and transform it into something way more expressive with just a few smart note choices. I think this is a really important lesson that's going to add so much to your playing. So grab your guitar, let's get into it. Now, some of these pentatonic additions, as we'll call them, became such a big part of a famous player's sound that people started using that player's name to refer to the new patterns or scales. And that's the case with our first example, the Dickey scale. Dickey played a huge part in shaping the Allman Brothers' classic Southern rock sound, and you'll probably recognize this kind of playing. So what's going on there? Well, Dickey was famous for taking the major pentatonic scale and adding 1 note, the 4th interval, to create a 6-note scale that sounds really amazing. We're going to be playing in the key of G today for our examples, and if you're not as familiar with major pentatonic as minor, here's an easy trick to help you adjust. All we have to do to create the major pentatonic scale is to take the minor pentatonic scale, and here's pattern 1 of G minor up at the 15th position, and we drop it down 3 frets. Another way to think of this is when we play the first pattern of minor pentatonic, our index finger is on the root note. When we drop down to play major pentatonic, our pinky is now on the root note. Pretty easy. So major pentatonic has the notes the root, the 2nd, the major 3rd, the 5th, and the 6th. In the key of G, those notes are G, A, B, D, and E. And let's relate that to a famous Allman Brothers groove that goes from the 1 chord, or G, to the 4 chord, or C. Now, we could use just major pentatonic over those 2 chords. And it sounds good, but it sounds a little empty over the C chord especially because we don't have the C root note in G major pentatonic. Well, Dickey solved that problem by adding the 4th or C to G major pentatonic, and we get this pattern. Which sounds so good and so melodic for 2 reasons. First of all, when we play over the C chord, now we've got that C in there, so our licks sound more connected. But it also sounds great over the 1 chord or the G because playing that C note gives us a suspended 4th sound. Now, we've all heard this a million times. That little harmonic movement adds so much to the sound, and that's what we can do with our licks now that we've got that C note with the major pentatonic. So here's straight major pentatonic. And here's a similar lick, but using the Dickey scale with the 4th added in. Really cool stuff, and that takes us to another move that was associated with one of the true all-time greats. Let's check out the Jeff Beck scale. Oh, but before we do that, if you're enjoying these videos, could you do me a favor? Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications. I put out a video every Friday, and I don't want you to miss any. Now, in the 1960s, there was a lot of Eastern influence on rock and pop music. One of the ways musicians were able to get some Eastern influence into their sound was to use what can be called the dominant pentatonic, the Mixolydian pentatonic, the Hindu pentatonic, or as it came to be known after one of its most famous users, the Jeff Beck scale. See if you've ever heard something like this. While that scale has an awesome and slightly exotic sound, we get it by making a super simple modification to the standard minor pentatonic. Now, G minor pentatonic has the intervals root, minor third, fourth, fifth, and flat 7, or the notes G, B flat, C, D, and F. To get the Jeff Beck scale, all we need to do is make the minor third major, or play B instead of B flat. Here's standard minor pentatonic, and here's the Jeff Beck scale. Listen to Jeff's classic tune Lead Boots to hear this sound. Another great example is Eric Johnson's song Camel's Night Out off the album Venus Isle. And I hear Joe Bonamassa use this scale a lot over major blues grooves. It sounds amazing over dominant 7 chords because you get both the bluesy sound of the flat 7, but we've also got the fourth in there, so we get that suspended fourth sound to mix in with our blues. Check out this lick where I'm going to play the fifth, the flat 7, the root, and the major third. And then I'm really going to exploit moving from the major third to the fourth and back. That little half step bend is something Jeff would use a lot. Hearing that major tonality next to the bluesy flat 7, it's like eating something that's both sweet and spicy. It's an amazing sound, the scale feels good under your fingers, and it'll make an awesome addition to your blues and rock soloing vocabulary. On to our next pentatonic addition, and it's another situation where we're going to add one note to standard pentatonics to create a new scale. This idea works on both major and minor pentatonics. It's one you might already know, the blues scale. If we start with the minor pentatonic, we're going to add in this note, which gives us this pattern, and sound. That note is the flat 5, or D flat, when we're adding it to G minor pentatonic. Now, the minor blues scale sounds great over dominant 7 chords. And it also sounds great over minor chords. Classic bluesy sound. And now check this out. If we drop down 3 frets, like we did to go from minor pentatonic to major, we get what we call the major blues scale. Now, because of the way the notes sit on the fretboard, the added note, which was the flat 5 in the minor version, is going to be the flat or minor third in the major blues scale. So we're going to get both the major and minor third, and that little bit of chromaticism makes licks over a major or dominant 7 chord have this smoother sounding flow, or what I call a greasy sound. This kind of a thing. also going to hear players in country, blues, and rock mix the major and minor blues scale, starting off major and finding a point to slide up 3 frets and convert it to minor. So many awesome possibilities here. On to our next awesome pentatonic addition. And it's another one like the blues scale where we're adding an extra note, and depending on whether we're playing the minor or the major pattern, that note, it's going to be different. Let's start off with minor. If we go up to pattern 1 of G minor pentatonic, we're going to be adding a note a whole step above the root. And that would be the second, or I generally think of it as the 9th. In relation to G, it's the A note. So in pattern 1, here's the entire scale. People find the 9th over a minor chord conveys the emotions of melancholy, moodiness, or yearning. This kind of a sound. Bending up into the 9th and then up into the minor 3rd. It really hits home emotionally. So that's one way to use it. And Jeff Beck, Gary Moore, David Gilmour, Andy Timmons, they're players that seem to gravitate to that 9th over minor chords. Now, Stevie Ray Vaughan used the 9th and the flat 9 in one of his signature licks. And it was used in a minor pattern over major or dominant 7 chords. And if you've ever listened to Stevie, and who hasn't, you've heard a version of this lick. In that lick, he starts off playing the 5th twice, the root, the flat 7 and the 5th again, then the 9th. So let's get this much down. Then it's the root followed by a quick hammer on and pull off of the 9th. Then the flat 7th and 5th. Then the root, flat 7 and 5th again. Pair that up with the blues scale and you can play licks that sound like this. I still miss you, Stevie. Okay, what if we drop that pattern down 3 frets and turn it major? Now our added note, it's 1 fret below the root, which means it's the major 7th interval. So now we can play really pretty sounding lines over a major 7 chord without having to think about, say, Lydian mode or major 7 arpeggios. We can easily get lines that are reminiscent of something Eric Johnson would play, and I've also seen Eric Gales add the major 7th into his licks a lot. Something like this. That's really good stuff. Let's do one more pentatonic addition, this one over a minor chord, or more specifically, a 2-chord progression that goes from a minor chord to a major chord a 4th above. If we start with G minor, that would be G minor to C. That C major chord has an E note in it that is not in G minor pentatonic. So to sound really awesome over this progression, we're going to add E, which is the natural 6th interval of G to G minor pentatonic. Now we might hear this kind of progression as sort of a Santana type groove. A great example is Pink Floyd's Shine On You Crazy Diamond, or I often hear it used in funky blues grooves. Here's what the scale sounds like. I'm going to play over a funky blues groove. I'm going to mix in the 9th here and there also. Have a listen to this. Now, interestingly enough, I just played all the notes of the Dorian mode. But I wasn't thinking Dorian when I played those licks. I'm thinking about minor pentatonic with some extra color added. If I start thinking of Dorian mode, I start playing 3-note per string patterns, the whole thing changes, it starts to get kind of shreddy. And that's cool, but it's a completely different vibe when I'm thinking pentatonic with some spice added. What I play just has a more bluesy and organic sound and feel. So there you go, folks. That was 7 different ideas for getting different sounds out of your pentatonic based licks by either adding a note to the scale or moving a note around. We had the Dickey scale, the Jeff Beck scale, we had the major blues scale, the minor blues scale, we added the 9th to minor pentatonic, we added the major 7th to major pentatonic, and we added the 6th to minor pentatonic to get a Dorian vibe. I think this is a great way to get these different colors into your playing. Because the licks we were coming up were still based in the pentatonic scale, they still had that earthiness, that bluesiness, that feel that we associate with pentatonic playing. But we were able to get sounds that we would normally associate with different scales and modes without having to think about all that stuff. Take these concepts, apply it to all the patterns of the pentatonic scale, and I just know you're going to come up with great licks and you're going to sound incredible. Remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, turn on those notifications because I put out a video like this every week. I don't want you to miss any. Work hard, have fun with your guitar. I'll see you soon.